Look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of Joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V. Hill.
Hey, welcome on into Coffee Break. I'm your host, Dante Gomez, filling in for Rachel V. Hill. It is a Merilatt Monday, joined by James here. We had a Buffs loss, a Broncos loss. So I'm sure it was like Christmas Day for James over here.
I was so ready to come in and have a Monday with you talking about two big wins and the Buffs being, in line to make a run at the playoffs and the Broncos looking at the same thing. Look, there's no moral victory, so a loss is a loss. But considering all the injuries they had to deal with and not having Travis Hunter, the fact they got back in the game, at least you felt pretty good about how they played. The Broncos, not so much. That was abysmal yesterday, Dante. It was so bad. We've seen a lot of bad offense around here. Some of the Tebow years, certainly the last couple of years. But those first three quarters were as bad an offensive football as I've ever seen. And I've been watching this team for 45 years. It was awful. Awful.
Yeah, I mean, Broncos start slow again. It's kind of been a trend all season. I think they were 10-0 against the Jets. They had like 3 points 10-0 at the end of the half against the Steelers, 6-0 at the end of the half against the Jets, 10-0 again at the end of the first quarter yesterday. So they've just been getting boat raced out the gate every single game. What do you attribute the slow starts to? Why does it happen to click in the second half? Is it that the defense just kind of takes their foot off the gas?
Yeah. I mean, it didn't click in the second half. It was 23-0 after three quarters. They had 5 first downs and 88 yards. So at that point, the Chargers are just sitting back saying, hey, burn clock. We'll let you move the ball. Just burn some clock. And the Broncos put together some garbage points and some garbage yards. They were never in that football game. So the reason they're bad out of the gate every week is because they're a bad offense. They've had one game out of 6 where they've been good early on. That was the Tampa game. Really, that first drive down in Tampa, their only notable offensive highlight all year. They were crappy against the Seahawks, despite the fact that the defense gave them the ball twice in point-blank range, couldn't get a first down, had to settle for field goals.
And scored 4 of their points for that.
Right. They were awful against the Steelers. Awful. Again, first drive down in Tampa, they were good. Rest of the game, they were okay. They were horrendous in New York, and people will say, it's the weather. Okay, they were horrendous. They were fine against the Raiders. Fine, had less than 300 yards of offense, but they were fine. And then they were horrendous yesterday. So for the most part this season, Sean Payton's offense has been terrible, right? He told us the whole problem was the quarterback. He needs his handpicked guy who we went out and got Bo Nix at number 12 because he's smarter than everybody else. And for the first time in 41 years, the 6th quarterback taken in the draft is going to be a star, not a journeyman. That's what he sold us. And his offense is terrible and his rookie quarterback is terrible. Sorry, it's time to just start pointing it out. It's time to stop grading on a curve, stop being the little league mom, keeping the scorebook that, ground ball through the second baseman's legs is a base hit for little Billy. No, it's not. It's an error. This offense stinks. Bo Nix stinks. Doesn't mean it can't turn around. But yesterday was awful, 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 awful. And it's time people started pointing it out instead of dancing around it. If they played that poorly with Tebow, people would be all over it. If they played that poorly with Russ, people would be all over it. Why does Bo Nix get a free pass? Why?
Well, I mean, I think the obvious answer. Let's dive into the full Bo Nix experience we had yesterday. Then, I think it's the obvious answer is he gets past. He's a rookie. He's 6 games in. He hasn't really, seen much NFL action. I actually thought he looked more confident out there in the most, previous 2-3 weeks here than he did early in the season. So I see a little bit of a building there.
I see no progress.
Okay.
None. So I don't think they're any better week 6 than they were week 1. Like, I'll buy the rookie thing if they start here and it's a progression. Even if it's slow, right? It doesn't need to be, they're climbing this mountain in huge steps, but show me something. What do you have, 22 passing yards at halftime yesterday?
Yeah.
They had 88 yards of offense through 3 quarters. I mean, that is so bad. That's beyond he's a rookie bad. It's Drake May showed some signs yesterday.
I actually have
Jaden Daniels has been really good. Caleb Williams gets better and better and better, throws 4 touchdowns across the pond yesterday. Everybody else is progressing. Michael Penix hasn't gotten on the field because Kirk Cousins is starting to play well. J.J. McCarthy's hurt. The other guys, though, that are playing are getting better, and our guy just plateaus at best if not goes this direction, and we all just got to dance around it. Oh, he's a rookie. Oh, he's a rookie. Sorry, it's not the grade you on a curve league. It's a go out and produce results, and they aren't. This defense, and they weren't great yesterday without Pat Surtain, but they were fine. 23 points at home. You should be able to win. You should be able to win if you have a competent offense. They'd be 6-0 with Russell Wilson. It's a travesty that with this defense and this schedule, they're 3-3. That is ridiculous.
See, I think that's a little funny because I feel like at the beginning of the year, if you would have said the Broncos are 3-3 after the first 6 weeks, I feel like most fans would have taken that.
It's how you get to it, though.
But yeah, I know it is. It's how it looks. It's how great the defense has been playing, and it's almost been a letdown. Not almost. It's been a letdown on the offensive side, and they're letting down the defensive side of the ball. Who, have been playing great. 3 points allowed in the second half yesterday. So even on what's called an average day, they only let 3 points up in the second half. So still a good performance from them. You mentioned the other rookies. So Drake May comes out yesterday, throws for 243, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks as well. But that blows every other rookie from this year out of the water in their first round pick quarterbacks in their debut. Caleb Williams throws for 93 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Jaden Daniels, 184, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Bo Nix, 138, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Those were the stats from those guys week 1 since they were the starter at the gate. Do you make anything of, hey, maybe we should have let Bo Nix sit, or are you still right now in favor of we're happy we start him at the gate?
What the heck did Drake May learn the last 5 weeks standing on the sideline holding a clipboard?
Well, I mean, it seems like he had a much better debut than a lot of the other guys.
Maybe, but I don't attribute to that he stood there for 5 weeks. Like, what did he learn that he couldn't have learned from all he did was watch film? Well, couldn't he have watched film during the offseason? Like, I just don't buy it. Now,
maybe so you're still happy that Bo Nix was the guy.
Yeah, okay. I mean, given the fact that Jarrett Stidham's the option, sure, let him go. You learn a lot more being on the field than you do standing on the sidelines. You don't learn squat standing on the sidelines. It's the most overrated thing ever. So yeah, he should have been the starter from the get-go to see what you got. I just don't think they got much. Like everybody, I got to wait 17 weeks. Why? What have we seen? What is the high, other than he runs around pretty well?
Yeah, he did have that nice little run.
Where they down 20-0 and he's pointing at the defender.
Hey, that was the little Ferris Bueller in him.
This is just it's getting worse. It really is getting worse, and I'm just throwing up my hands. It's getting worse with each passing week. It's not getting better. He hasn't done anything that looks special. All those other guys have had at least moments where you're like, ooh, maybe this is the guy. What on earth have we seen from Bo Nix that says he's anything other than a journeyman? And you know what the 6th drafted quarterback in every draft since 1983 has been? A journeyman. That's what he is. That's what he looks like. That's what he's going to turn out to be. And Sean Payton, boy, this guy had to have his offense, had to get rid of Russ so he could run his offense. Really enjoyed that for 3 quarters yesterday, getting 88 total yards. Just as bang my head against the wall.
So are you just splitting the blame between Nix and Sean, or is there any bit on the offensive weapons, on the lack of the run game? It feels like we were kind of building on something not those first 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks here with Javonte, and then come out yesterday, kind of laid an egg running the game. Bo Nix was your leading rusher. He had that big long run you were mentioning where he pointed down the defender there.
Yep.
Had a little moxie, I guess, if you're looking on the positive side of that.
Or a little lack of self-awareness.
Yeah, well, tomato.
I mean, look, do they have a void in terms of skill position guys? Yes, but I've been saying that for a year and a half, and nobody wanted to hear it last year, right? So, yeah, they have a running back room that's mediocre at best. We all get excited and do cartwheels down Spear Boulevard when Javonte Williams runs for 61 yards, like he's the second coming of Eric Dickerson at that point. Like, it's 61 yards, folks. Like, pump the brakes on the excitement. Their tight end room's non-existent, just non-existent. The receiver room, I mean, look, Cortland Sutton's good for one crazy, amazing catch,
which he had this weekend.
Every couple of weeks,
reminded me of 2024.
That was a phenomenal catch. But he's not an elite receiver. He's not a number one on any other team. Devon Vele is probably their best receiver at this point in terms of just being consistent, and he's a rookie.
And not even on the active roster most of the weeks too. I know he was injured there, but it seemed like he was maybe a healthy scratch at one point too. So
yeah, it's just a poorly designed offense. I mean, they showed the aerial view once yesterday, and it was 4 guys all on the one half of the field, couple of hooks, couple of deeper hooks, just like it's the easiest thing in the world to defend. Like a team, a 7th grade team could defend that with a good solid zone defense. Like there's just nothing to it. I think Sean Payton's offense is the most overrated thing going. And we had to get a different quarterback so we could see it, because Russ was just holding him back and running into sacks and, can't go through the progressions. We need to have a processor. Remember how many times we heard processor? How'd you enjoy that processing when he was 4 for 14 for 22 yards in the first half? Just processing the hell out of it.
Yeah, supercomputer Bo Nix is what I was told before the draft.
Gosh, it was fantastic.
I'm still holding out hope. I'm giving him until week 8 to see something. I feel like around midway through the season is when you'll really
so 2 more weeks.
Yeah, I'm giving him 2 more weeks.
They go down to New Orleans
reassess.
Thursday. I mean, we had 72 hours, a little over 72 hours to kickoff.
Quick turnaround.
Are you sure they're going to beat the Panthers?
Panthers looked pretty frisky yesterday against the Falcons. I don't know if you caught any of that game. So
that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure they're going to win that game.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think there's any. I think the Broncos are in a weird situation where I think they could beat any team in the NFL, and I think they could lose to any team in the NFL. I think they're that wide.
They can't beat any team in the NFL.
I think they could on any given Sunday.
Not with this offense. They ain't beating the Chiefs with this group. They ain't beating the Vikings. They ain't beating the Lions. They ain't beating the Niners. They're not beating the Bills. They're not beating the teams that are Super Bowl contenders. They beat the Raiders. They beat the Jets, who fired their coach 9 days later. They beat the Bucs. That was a nice win because the Bucs were overlooking them. It was a classic trap game for Tampa Bay, and they fell right into it. But can they lose to any team in the league? Sure. Can they beat any team in the league? Not with what we saw yesterday. They can't.
Okay.
Who did they beat yesterday?
Well, I mean, yesterday was a bad example of that, but they have shown throughout the season that they can play with some of those big dogs. I'll make a bet with you. I bet they beat the Chiefs once. I bet they split.
Fine. Sign me up.
We'll discuss the terms off the air, but we'll figure it out. But I think they can beat the Chiefs at least once this year.
One.
Well, let's move on to the defense. Pat Surtain goes out pretty early there with a concussion. A little worried about him maybe not being able to come back on Thursday just because of quick turnaround concussion protocol.
Yep.
What did you make the defense without Pat Surtain out there? And what do you think it'll look like on Thursday if they are still Patrick Surtainless?
I think it'll look a lot like it did yesterday. I mean, they were fine. They weren't great. It limits what you can do a little bit because you can't just, put one corner on an island. But, I don't want to hear anymore that, he takes away half the field. It's not 1978, where if you take away Lynn Swann, John Stallworth's the only guy who can beat you. It's like they got 5 guys running routes, right? Like he takes away 20% of the field. He doesn't take away half the field. Did it limit what they could do? A little bit, but the Chargers don't have an elite receiver that they were just going to put him on to lock down. So if you were ever going to miss a game, that would be the game to miss it on. The defense was fine. They weren't great. They didn't help out the offense like they have in some other games with big turnovers and short fields and stuff like that. But look, they didn't lose the game because of the defense. They didn't. I mean,
no, they held him in there. They gave him a chance.
I mean, people say, they can't get off the field. Well, they were also on the field the whole time. I mean, the offense had 23 minutes of time of possession, exactly. A little under. So I thought the defense was fine. It's like, it's like blaming the loss on the punter. I mean, come on.
No, I mean, yeah, that's fair. I thought the defense played all right. I was actually shocked to see how well they played in the second half. Maybe the Chargers weren't, incentivized to score too much in the second half versus just kind of drain that clock. And at that point, it's just a game where, there's only so many possessions left in the game and they can just kind of bleed it out.
I mean, look, I think defensively, the Chargers didn't let down. They just stopped bringing heat and bringing pressure and kind of sitting back. And the Broncos got some success. I think offensively, they were in, hey, don't make a mistake and help Denver get back in the game mode. They went super conservative. So, but look, this is on the offense. It's on Sean Payton. He's over there with his Red Robin menu, trying to figure out if he wants the Risky River barbecue burger or the Bonsai burger or which shake he wants to order. It's awful. It's awful, awful, awful.
Yeah, I mean, there was the one drive, the touchdown drive we talked about. Cortland Sutton makes an incredible catch. Or maybe I might be confusing 2 different drives here. There was one drive where it looked pretty consistent. Bo Nix threw like a 20-yard pass to Sutton in the middle there. Troy Franklin made a catch. Troy Franklin made a touchdown catch as well. So there was some semblance of an offense, but just you can't have it for one drive. One drive is just never going to win you a game.
And you can't have it when you're down 23-0 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, there was an awesome. Did you go to the game or were you watching on TV?
I was watching on TV.
Okay. Did you see the little after they scored? I think it was a Troy Franklin touchdown. They did a little package to the Ferris Bueller music.
I did see that.
That was pretty cool. I thought
when they sent it to commercial or whatever, they were
when
playing,
they were sending out
song from Ferris Bueller. I mean, look, that's been a funny storyline. There's been some things that have kind of, been highlights through the first 6 weeks, and people say, hey, they're 3-3. That's better than we would have thought. Okay. But given how the schedule has gone, the Raiders were a mess when they came in here, right? Devontae Adams problem. They bench Gardner Minshew. They go to New York. The Jets are just in shambles. They're playing in a driving rainstorm, which helps them slow down Aaron Rodgers and company. The Steelers scored 13 points. The Seahawks turned the ball over a bunch, gave up 2 safeties. Like, when you look at it game by game, though, I think it's inexcusable they've only won 3 games. I think it's laughably bad.
Yeah, we'll see going forward. They do have 2, quote unquote easy wins or easier wins, which we'll see how that ends up turning out.
I don't know.
For this team, doesn't seem like there's any easy wins. Like we were talking
about.
They're
going to go up against a rookie quarterback this week. Like, that should, give that defense an opportunity to be better. But you're right. They probably won't be without Surtain, given that he's in concussion protocol and they turn around in 4 days and play a game. But offensively, do you have any confidence they're going to go down to New Orleans and just light it up?
I mean, I'm a big Sean Payton believer. I know I'm probably one of the last ones out there. I still think he's going to find a way to get it done. I think he's going to want to put on a show at his old home crowd there.
I'm sure he wants to.
I would bet
I want to go out back and dunk
3 points. Did you ever dunk in your life?
I could dunk a tennis ball. That's all I could ever do.
Okay, that's not bad. That's better than most. I would
6 feet tall. It's not bad.
No, I would take that. Yeah, I had one 6-month range of being able to dunk.
Okay,
my senior year of high school.
That's a very narrow window.
Yeah, it was like my end of my senior year of high school.
Shorter than the Avs championship window.
Well, we're not going to go to the Avs today. We'll save that for later in the week, but we will talk CU. Almost complete the comeback.
Yeah.
Travis Hunter goes out with an injury. Jimmy Horn goes out with an injury. Who knows what their timetables look like going forward. They play what I would argue is the best team they've played on their schedule so far, K-State. Them in Nebraska, pretty close up there.
Yeah.
They're 2 losses on the year. Nearly complete the comeback. Shedeur Sanders makes some great throws. He makes that one awful throw. What did you make of it? It was a little Folsom magic out there.
Yeah, for a time. I thought, considering they had 4 receivers down at one point, they come all the way back in the fourth quarter, take the lead with a couple minutes left, and then just squander it. It was a shame because their defense has been so good in the second half of games all season long. They really needed one more stop, and they get the win. They didn't come close to getting it. They gave it back just in the blink of an eye. But I thought it was a gutty effort coming back. I thought Shedeur Sanders was great. There's no moral victories, though, right? You had a chance to win a game at home. Big stage would have really put them in a position to control their own destiny in the Big 12. I don't think they're done yet. It's a very even conference.
It is, yeah, top to bottom. That's one of the most even conferences. Yeah, or so at least top to middle. Like, they
need some help, but it's but anybody can beat anybody in any given week in that conference. So, if they run the table, which I don't expect them to, but if they do, they go 6-0, they're going to be in the Big 12 title game. They're going to be. K-State's going to lose to somebody, or something's going to happen.
Yeah, I was saying BYU at the top right now,
right?
But, how trustworthy are those team at this point?
They could easily lose a game or 2. Yeah. So it was a bummer. It was a shame. I do think, look, they were 1-1 when Shiloh Sanders got hurt. They won all 3 games when he was out. He was awful. His dad said so after the game.
He called
him horrible. He was so bad against the run, against the pass. He just was. At some point, they needed to take him off the field. The defense is better without him. And so that was the only real negative I came away with, was like, man, that is just, if his last name wasn't Sanders, if he was Shiloh Anderson, he'd have got benched. And I think that's a shame. I think it's a disservice to the rest of the team. I think it's a disservice to the fan base that he's out there playing just because he's the coach's kid. He was not good. He was awful. That really hurt him. It was a gutty effort. It was an entertaining game. It was a ton of fun, but I was debating this with my son. He's a freshman at CU, so he was there. I'm like, would you rather come all the way back and then lose like that, or just had him lose 31-14? I'd rather had 31-14.
Oh, no, you can't.
Yeah.
This team showed grit, which they did not do a lot of last year. And I think, again, there's no moral victories.
You get grit. So,
well, I mean, that's an important quality to a football team. They're going to need that at some point this season.
Gut.
They needed it against Baylor. They've showed it a couple times this year where they are grittier than last year. They do have that, pull yourself up by your bootstraps a little bit. And again, even without Travis, I think if Travis Hunter plays, I think they win that game.
I think they do too. And that was a that was a shame. See how long he's out. They're just not the same team without him. But it was a bummer. It was a bummer. Part of me is just like, you stay all the way up till midnight just to get kicked in the teeth. Could have gone to bed at 10 o'clock if they were down 31-3.
James, that's what sports is about.
Could've
It's about the fun.
slept.
It's about the roller coaster ride that you
slept
go
a little
on.
bit. I don't enjoy roller coasters at this point.
You know what? I think I might be getting to that age too. So I get it. But I had fun watching the game. It was a great slate of college football all day. Night capped with the CU game. So hopefully got some national attention. And, I think a lot of positive takeaways outside of not getting a win necessarily. But we'll see how long Travis is out. We'll see how that affects his Heisman odds as well if he misses too much time. The Boise State running back JT had a great game again, and a win out in Hawaii. So, a couple missed games there could take Travis Hunter out of the running, unfortunately. And Travis Hunter, you mentioned it changes the whole game. It changes 100% of the game because he is on 100% of he's on the field all the time. He's on defense. He's on offense. He does it all. He does some special team stuff. So
it honestly hurt him more on defense. Now look, they lost so many receivers that it became a problem, but even with 4 receivers out, they still had guys out there making plays. They're loaded on the outside on offense. Defensively, they don't have a way to replace him at corner. That's where it really hurt. If he can't play offense, it's a bummer, but it's not a huge downgrade to go with some of the other guys. Defensively, that was a huge, huge loss.
Yeah, no, I know. And again, the Buffs defense has been great in the second half so far. That last drive, just 3 plays, under a minute. It took them under a minute to score at that point. It was like 80 yards or 74 yards, something like that.
And you're up 4. Like they have to get a touchdown. Like you're in a great spot there. And just a total meltdown. I don't know what they were doing defensively, but it was, the isolation or one-on-one coverage on the outside on the touchdown. They tried to bring pressure, didn't get close to him. Just was a total miss. And look, you got to give it to K-State. They made the plays down the stretch, but Avery Johnson hadn't done much through the air up to that point, and then all of a sudden he looks like Dan Marino. But it just was a bummer. Yeah. But I'm a CU buff. I graduated from there. I can at least be proud of the way my team played. Like, it's disappointing that they lost, but they didn't embarrass themselves. The Broncos embarrassed themselves yesterday. They did. They embarrassed themselves. Huh. That's a game they shouldn't even put on television. They shouldn't waste the airwave time with that.
Yeah, hopefully too many people around the country were not watching that game, and they got to tune into some good football on Sunday, which the NFL in general has been getting, a little bit better for the audience the last 2 weeks. More points scored, not so lousy. But let's look forward to CU's next games. A couple here they have at Arizona versus Cincinnati and at Texas Tech. Kind of a big swing there. What would ideally, obviously 3-0. What are you kind of predicting those next 3 games? And let's say hypothetically Travis Hunter misses, I don't know, 1 or 2 of those.
I think if he doesn't play, I think every game becomes a little bit of a crapshoot at that point. It also depends on, is Horn back? Is Miller back? Like, how many receivers are they down? I think they can win all 3. I think they could probably go 1-2. That wouldn't shock me. If you win all 3, all of a sudden you're right back in the conversation.
Yeah, you're probably ranked at that point.
If you're 7-2, you're back in it. So, look, it's just go down and figure out a way to beat Arizona down in Tucson. Get that. Then you worry about the next one. Then you worry about the next one. Not to sound too much like coach speak, but 5-2 feels good. 4-3, you're like, God, what are we trying to barely squeak into just a low-level bowl game? So just go win down in Arizona. Just win that one. Then you can start looking ahead. Get things back on track.
Yeah, and that's a very winnable game. I've watched a lot of Arizona football. They're a little bit more of a finesse team this year, and they've shown that they can get bullied a little bit. Got bullied by Kansas State and by BYU. So I don't know if CU's necessarily the team that can bully people, but
it
would
UCF.
Be good for them. That's true. They did bully UCF. I did see that out there. So if they can just, kind of take control of that game, run the ball, which I know they don't really love doing up there. But if they can kind of control the line of scrimmage, I think they have a good chance in that one.
Yeah, so. I think they do too. And hopefully they go out and play well, get a victory, get back on track. They need to go down, and offensively they need to follow the plan they followed at UCF. They stuck to the running game. They couldn't really run the ball very well the other night. Which is also, the defense at some point gets tired too, because they don't get a lot of time to be on the sideline. So it was disappointing, but all is not lost. Go beat Arizona, and you're not looking at, hey, can we get to 6 wins and try and get in a bowl? You beat Arizona, you're starting to talk, hey, can they get to 8-9, get to a legitimate bowl closer to New Year's Day? So it all starts on Saturday, though.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. We got a couple good games coming up here. We got Thursday night Broncos at Saints, and then Saturday we'll have Buffs down at U of A. That'll do it for us. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. James Palmer joins tomorrow, so we'll get his thoughts on all things Broncos. Until tomorrow, have a good one, guys. Thank you.